Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be diving into something special. This is part 1 and I'll be showing you how to start painting this cardinal and to start creating a unique busted canvas. I hope you'll join me. Today we're going to be painting a cardinal on a 11 by 14 canvas board. We are also going to be painting an 11 by 14 canvas, the front and the back. And these are the colors of paints that we are going to be using. Now I'm using DecoArt, but you can use whatever brand you have on hand. I'm using True Blue, True Red, a black and a white, a dark brown and a medium brown, an orange, and a green. It's a medium gray green. And the brushes I'm using, it's a variety of them. Primarily the 1-inch flat brush. I'm using a number 10 round brush. A number 3 liner brush. A number 1 liner brush. And a fan brush. You don't need multiple liner brushes. A medium liner brush would do. And of course, you'll need a palette. I'm using an old baking tray, and I've covered it with press and seal and a container for water. I have included a free downloadable tracer in the description, and you can print it off and you can use it to trace the cardinal and the branch onto your canvas board. Or you can freehand, but if you wish to use the tracer, you will need a white transfer paper and a graphite transfer paper. I also use a stylus when I'm tracing, or you can use a pen or a pencil. If you have decided to use the tracer, you will need to trace the pattern onto something that's more transparent, like parchment paper or onion skin if you have that. But I've used parchment paper. And the reason you want to do that is when you're positioning your transfer over your canvas, you want to be able to see underneath so you can actually position it. Let's start painting. So for the first step, you will need blue and white. And what we want to do is we want to paint the background. We're going to add some white, and then we're going to pick up some of the blue. We are painting the canvas board to begin with. The top 2/3 of the canvas board will be a little bit darker than the bottom third. The bottom third will be mostly background snow. And the top 2/3 will be some sky and some background behind the trees. When painting the background, you can do some swirls or some X's. You can always add a little bit of water to your brush just to make the paint move a little bit smoother. The top right corner will be the light source, so you can make that a little bit lighter than the rest of the painting. We are now going to take the canvas and paint the back of the canvas with the same colors that we just used on the canvas board. So when we do the busted canvas part, this will be cut up and it will be curled, and this will appear on the other side of the canvas. So what I'm thinking of doing is adding some red berries, since cardinals seem to like berries. Well, this will need a few coats. I am also going to be painting the wooden frame inside the canvas. And this is what the first coat of paint looks like in the inside of the canvas. And I found that the paint worked best if I misted it with some water. I'm going to add one more coat on the inside, and I'm just going to mist it very lightly. Once that's dry, I'll probably go back in and add some more, a little bit easier. White. Okay. Now that the background is dry, I'm going to be adding some of the green Thicket to the background where the trees would be, so on the left-hand side and a little bit on the right-hand side. So when we trace the bird, the trees will be in this area, and we can add some trees on this area as well. So I'm going to pick up some white paint and a little bit of the Thicket and just work it into my palette. So I get a nice green color, nice light green color. And I'm going to start in this little area here. You can see I'm going back and forth. And then I'm going to go back into the white and work around it, just to blend it in. Once this area is dry, you can always go back in and add a little bit more of the Thicket if you want it to be a little bit darker. Now I'll do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to go into my white and a little bit of the Thicket. And work it into this back area here. So we will be adding trees here. And of course the bird will be placed in about the center here. So this will give the illusion of a forest in the background. Once you're happy with the background, let it dry, and then it will be time to trace your bird and the branch, or freehand the design. Now we are going to start base coating in the branch and the trees. And I'm using my number 10 round brush, as well as the dark chocolate and a honey brown. So any dark chocolate and light or medium light brown will do. And what we are going to do is basically pull in streaks of both colors. So we'll start with the branch. So I'm going to go into my dark chocolate and just make some basically streaks. As well as the tiny little branches. And you can add many more branches if you like. And without cleaning the brush, I'm going into the lighter brown and adding some streaks on top. Now you notice I'm going to the edge, but as I had mentioned before, once I put the frame on or the canvas on top, we're going to lose about 1.5 inches off the side. So you won't see that. So there's no need to overwork it. This can be done very quickly. And once it's dry, we will come back in and add some black for some shadows towards the bottom of the branch. And we'll highlight a little bit at the top, but we are going to be putting some snow there. And now we are going to do the trees. And we're going to use the same technique. I like to put my canvas upside down when I'm doing some trees. It's easier to pull towards myself. Now you could have traced the main tree that was on the design, or you can add your own. On the edge, we are going to be painting some evergreen branches. So for the main tree in the back, what I'm doing is I'm going into the dark chocolate and let's see, and I'm going to pull up and twist my brush just to start making some branches. And by twisting, you're creating a fine line. Now you can make this a bigger tree or a little tree. And then you're pulling some of the lighter brown in there as well. We will be adding some white trees as well. And you can make another smaller tree here. So on this edge, I'm going to bring down some branches. And so this will be an evergreen tree. Pretend there's a big evergreen tree here. And these are some branches going down. So the top one will be shorter than the next one. And of course, the next one will be longer than the one before. There's also a smaller branch towards the bottom. You can add those in if you wish. These will also be tiny little evergreen branches, and we will cover them with snow as well. Okay, I think that's a good start to the branches. I'm going to start blocking in the colors for the bird. And I'm going to use True Red. And I'm going to add the dark chocolate to the red for certain parts. And this is just the first layer. I'm using my number 10 round brush again. But you can certainly use smaller brush or a filbert brush, whatever you have handy. All right, so I'm going to start at the crown. We're going to be adding lots of layers to this bird. And when you're doing your brush strokes, you want to just follow the shape of the bird. You can see this is the ugly stage of the painting. And I'm going to mix a little bit of the dark chocolate to the red, just to deepen that color a little bit. Gonna let that dry. Going back to the inside of the canvas, what I'd like to do is have some berries. I'm going to use the tip of one of my wooden brushes. You want to dip the tip of the wooden brush into the paint and then basically hit your canvas. So these are going to be random. So if you want them the same size, you need to dip into the paint every single time. Otherwise, they will get smaller and smaller. And remember, when we bust out the canvas, not all of these berries will show because some of them will be curled under. So you can put as many or as little as you want. I love this red. Now that the red dots are dry, I'm going to add a tiny little highlight with white paint onto the berries. I'm going to add a little bit of black to the Thicket that I use for the background, just to make it a little darker green. Just using a smidgen of color. Just want to deepen the color towards the bottom. And I'm going to do the same thing. This little corner here, just a little bit of the darker green. And back into my thicket. And back into the white. For these trees, I'm going to add some gray on the left-hand side of the branches and the trunk. I will be mixing some black and white to create a gray. A little bit darker. I will be mixing some black with a little bit of the dark chocolate to add some shadows on the branch and the tiny little branch. And for the last step of part 1, I'm going to add some of the black and dark chocolate mix to the evergreen branches. I hope that you enjoyed part 1 and that you will join me for part 2. Thanks for watching.